And the Florida Gators are the champions of college basketball. That was a crazy game Monday night. San Antonio, Texas. You had the Florida Gators going up against the Houston Cougars. They win 65-63, and they are the national champions of college basketball. So congratulations to the Florida Gators. Their third championship in their program's history. Their first since 2007. And as I mentioned in the post last week on my Instagram page, I was 10 years old the last time the Florida Gators won a championship. So you had that going on. But yeah, Florida Gators, man, they came back. They were down by 12 points at one point. Houston, they had the game. What the hell happened to you guys? You had the game. You were going to be the champions for the first time in your program's history. You were going to be the champions of college basketball. You blew it. You pulled a Duke. You know what Duke did in the Final Four against the Houston Cougars? They blew it. And they were up by 14 points late in the second half at one point. But yeah, Houston, they dominated that first half. I mean, they held Walter Clayton Jr., Florida's best player, to 0 points in the first half. Tremendous defense by the Houston Cougars. And then the second half came and they blew it. And then that last shot or whatever, that last moment, god awful. And that was the thing about this championship game. I was expecting a game-winning shot or an attempt at least. Build up that drama, build up that suspense, that thriller type, attitude, that thriller type situation for these college basketball national championship games. But unfortunately for us, we didn't get it. We got gypped out of that. So Florida wins 65-63, as I mentioned. Houston, like I said, they were up by 12 points. 12 freaking points at one point. And they blew it. I don't know how, because that first half, it looked like they were going to dominate the entire game because Florida couldn't do anything. I mean, they couldn't make a shot to save their lives. They kept on turning the ball over. I mean, they looked absolutely awful in that first half. Houston looked dominant. And then turn the page, second half, it was a complete 180. Florida started to get hot late in the second half. Houston kept on turning the ball over. They couldn't make shots. They were making stupid mistakes. And then Florida kept getting those opportunities and executing like they've been doing all season long, all tournament long. I mean, another comeback win for the Florida Gators. They came back against the defending national champions, the UConn Huskies. They came back against Texas Tech. They were down by 10 points at that point. So Florida are the comeback kids. They are the comeback kings of college basketball. And now they won their third championship in program history. Like I said, the first since 2007. Obviously, the 2006 and 2007 seasons, they went back-to-back. So it's been 18 years. 18 freaking years since the Florida Gators won the national championship. So good for them. And then going to Houston again, they held Walter Clayton Jr., Florida's best player, to 0 points in the first half, and then they collapsed. And then obviously how the game ended, a big defensive stop by Walter Clayton Jr. He got his hand up in the way of Emmanuel Sharp as he was trying to shoot the game-winning three towards the end of the game there, and he missed a shot. He messed up his motion, and he came down with the ball, and he couldn't touch the ball, or else it would have been a travel. So, everyone's just watching the ball dribble. It was one of the weirdest things I ever seen. It was one of the weirdest ways to end a championship game, not just in football or, baseball, whatever. This in all sports, in all championship games, that was the weirdest way to end the game. I mean, the guy, Emmanuel Sharp goes for the shot, comes back down with it because Walter Clayton Jr. got his hand up, stopped his motion, came back down with the ball. He can't touch it or else it's a travel. So all these guys, Florida Gators and the Houston Cougars are just watching the basketball bounce. And then Alex Condon eventually scoops it up. And that's how the game ends. Game over. National champions, Florida Gators. It was weird. But nonetheless, good game. I grade it a B+. I said A- earlier, but I'm going to say B+, just because we didn't get that last second shot. I wanted to see it just to see if he would make it, like I said earlier, to add that suspense, to add a drama. That is March Madness, right? I mean, key word right there, madness. We didn't see a whole lot of it this tournament this year. So I wanted to see that shot from Houston. We didn't get it. Weird way to end the game, but yeah, Florida Gators, they're the champions of college basketball. So good for them. They deserve it. Good game nonetheless. B+, my grade for that game. But yeah, we didn't get to see the game-winning shot. So kind of crappy. It's part of March Madness. I mean, you don't have game-winning. You don't have the madness without those game-winning shots. I mean, I wanted to see it. I'm sure everyone did, but we didn't get to see it. So you had that going on. So yeah, Sharp, he dropped the ball midair. He couldn't touch it. Also, it would have been a travel. And then Houston, their last 2 possessions, they didn't get a single shot off. So Florida playing great defense in those last 2 possessions that Houston had. I mean, they didn't get a single shot off, guys. They had 2 possessions, 2 opportunities to do it, and they couldn't. So Houston beat themselves up. And now this defeat from the Houston Cougars, it just adds to the misery to this franchise, to this program. I mean, I feel bad for Houston. I feel bad for those seniors. L.J. Cryer, obviously their best player. He's a senior. He's done after all this. But all the rest of the seniors, their last year playing for Houston. I feel bad for them. But this program itself, I mean, they lost the championship game Monday night. But then, obviously, in years past, the past few years, Sweet 16 losses, or Sweet 16 defeats, rather. Last year in 2024, and then 2 years ago in 2023. They had an Elite 8 loss in 2022, and then they have a Final 4 loss in 2021. So they're always right there. They're always in the mix of it. But they just can't. They can't win the championship. They can't handle their business, get the job done. It's heartbreaking. I mean, the Houston Cougars faithful, that whole community, the fan base, that whole school, I mean, a stab in the heart. I mean, you guys are frustrated over this. I mean, look at what I'm wearing, the Detroit Lions. For years, these guys couldn't go to win a playoff game. For years, they couldn't, but they finally did. So hopefully it'll happen one of these days, Houston winning a national championship. But once again, and then they've been runner-ups to the championship games back in 1983 and 1984 and now in 2025. So 3 separate times they were the runner-ups to the national championship game. And obviously in 1983 and 84, you had the Phi Slamma Jamma years that was led by one of the greatest basketball players of all time in Hakeem Olajuwon. So when you have a guy like that and you still can't win a championship, at least one during his time there, it's unfortunate. It's horrible. It's horrible. But now, enough about the Houston Cougars. They had their opportunities. They blew it. We got to talk about the Florida Gators. So Todd Golden, 3rd year at Florida. He becomes the youngest head coach to win the national championship at 39 years old. Still a young guy, man. And you know what? He led his team to victory. Like I said, this whole tournament, they came back against UConn. They came back against Texas Tech. And Texas Tech was dominating that game. They were up by 10 points. Late in the second half at one point. They came back from that game. This game, the championship game against Houston, they were down by 12 late in the second half. They found a way to come back. So Todd Golden, congrats to his team, youngest head coach to win the championship at 39 years old. First time since Jim Valvano won the championship for North Carolina State back in 1983. I wasn't even born yet. He won that championship in 83 at 37 years old. And then who was on the receiving end of that? If you guys have been paying attention, the Houston Cougars. So once again, Houston on the bad side of history, Florida on the good side of history. Like I said, national champions of college basketball. But Houston, I mean, they're always right there, man, but they just can't, they can't do it. So yeah, Jim Valvano from North Carolina State, he was the youngest head coach to win a championship game in college basketball. He won his at 37 years old back in 1983. Beat the Houston Cougars out of all teams, right? But now Todd Golden, youngest head coach, 39 years old to win a national championship, beating, well, you guess it, the Houston Cougars. So, yeah, it's just unfortunate for Houston on the bad side of history. Like I said, man, they looked dominant the entire game. That entire game, they looked absolutely dominant. Florida couldn't do anything. Walter Clayton Jr. held to 0 points in the first half. I mean, that's a recipe for dominance. That's a recipe for success. But then Maybe Houston forgot, hey, you have a whole second half to play. Don't let up. Don't get too soft. That's what they did. They started making mistakes. Florida grabbed those opportunities, and they executed. That's sports. I mean, it's a great thing, isn't it? So you had that going on. Want to highlight some players from both sides. So Will Richard, Florida Gator, a senior guard. He had 18 points in this game, 8 rebounds, 5 for 10 from the field goal. He was, in my opinion, the MVP. You know, he put his team on his back in the championship game Monday night. So you had that going on. Then L.J. Cryer, I mentioned him from Houston, senior guard. He had 19 points, 6 rebounds, 6 for 18 field goals. So, you know, you like to see that percentage a little better from your star player, but 19 points, you really did carry your team on your back in that game. And I just feel bad for him because he's a senior. Last time out, you know, you lose a championship game. And that's the thing about these championship games, whether it's basketball, whether it's football, you know, even the pros, talking about professional football, professional basketball, baseball, hockey. I mean, if you win, I mean, complete elation, complete happiness. You finally did it. It's a great time. We're all having fun. We're drinking beers. We're smoking stogies. You know, we're having a great time. But then you're on the losing end of these championship games. It's complete heartbreak. I mean, it's sad. It's depressing. I mean, it's, you know, incomprehensible. Like Coach Calvin Sampson said about his team, giving up a 12-point lead late in the second half of the championship game. But you're on the receiving, you know, you're on the losing end of these championship games. It sucks. You know, I mean, I can't even imagine what that's like. I've seen it numerous times. You know, you see the guy, you know, the Super Bowl, you see the guys walk off the field, a lot of them put the towels over their head down. I mean, they just can't believe what happened. You know, you worked so hard all season to get to this point, to win a championship. That's the ultimate goal. And you just can't, you can't win it. You lost. So, but yeah, Florida 65-63, B+, my grade for the national championship game. Like I don't think there's ever going to be a greater championship game than the 2016 national championship game between Villanova and North Carolina, because that was competitive, back and forth, all game long, and it came down to the game-winning shot. Chris Jenkins, boom, see you later. Villanova wins the national championship against the almighty North Carolina Tar Heels at that time when Roy Williams was still the head coach. But that was the greatest college basketball game and championship game I've ever watched. So hard to beat that, but now no more college basketball until October. So congrats to the Florida Gators. Hell of a victory, hell of a comeback. You love to see it, but then for Houston, complete heartbreak. Maybe they'll find a way to win it next year. So you had that going on, but now we got to go the odds. Who's going to win it next year? Who has the best odds to win the championship game next year? So according to CBS Sports, I looked this up yesterday, Duke is the favorite to win. Yeah, of course, because they're the Duke Blue Devils, the almighty Duke, one of the greatest basketball programs of all time. Lots of talent coming out of that school. You had Mike Krzyzewski there for over 40-plus years. You know, John Shire's there now, former player, won a national championship with Duke in 2010. But the Blue Devils are the favorite to win next year. 10-1 odds. And, you know, you got Cooper Flagg. He's only a freshman, so he's going to be a sophomore next year. So you have that. So that's possible. I mean, they looked absolutely phenomenal in the Final Four, and then they just collapse everywhere against the Houston Cougars. So the Duke's favorite to win, 10-1. And then Houston, the Cougars, are right behind them, 12-1. Louisville and Purdue are 14-1, and Kansas, the Jayhawks, are 16-1 odds to win the championship next year. So obviously a lot of basketball schools in those odds, obviously, right? You know, Houston, I'm kind of surprised that they're at the second spot, but no mention of Florida. I mean, the odds makers, the Vegas itself, they're not even giving Florida an opportunity. I mean, maybe they can go back-to-back. It'll be the first time since 2006, 2007. I mean, anything can happen. It's college basketball. It's sports. We all love it because of these moments. But, yeah, you know, the whole tournament, there's not many exciting moments. You know, it was kind of a shame this year. No Cinderella stories. You know, But hey, we can't be spoiled all the time, right? So that's college basketball. Florida Gators, the 2025 national champions of college basketball. Congrats to them. We'll see what happens next year. So that's college basketball. We got to talk about these Detroit Tigers. So yeah, obviously they lost yesterday, 4-3. Kind of a boring game. 6 scoreless innings from both sides, the Yankees and the Tigers. But Tigers lost to the Yankees 4-3. They were down 4-0 entering the ninth. Nice little comeback there, but it just wasn't enough to get the victory. Well, when the Yankees have 14 strikeouts from the bullpen, I mean, the Tigers' bats need to come alive. I mean, you can't be striking out. You got to get on base and you got to score those runs home. So, but Tigers win the series. I'm not complaining. Hey, 2 out of 3 against the Yankees, the runner-ups from the World Series last year. I'll take it. I'll take it. And you know what? Shout out to my best friend Eric Bilecki. I'm sure he's relieved now since the Yankees won yesterday, and they eliminated a 3-game losing streak as a result. But he loves his Yankees. I don't know why. He lives in Michigan, but whatever. He can cheer for he can root for whoever he wants. But yeah, the Yankees avoiding the sweep. The Tigers had a 5-game winning streak coming to that game yesterday. We couldn't do it, but we're off today. Same with the Yankees. The Yankees got the Giants tomorrow, so that's going to be a tough matchup for them. And then we got to go. The Tigers have to go to Minnesota to face the Twins, and I think they lost to the Royals yesterday. They did lose the first 2 games of that series, so should be an interesting matchup there. Another division matchup for the Detroit Tigers. We swept the White Sox, so maybe we can sweep these guys on the road. So you have that. But I want to talk more about this game. So, you had Torkelson. He scored on a wild pitch to make it 4-1. And then Zach McKinstry comes out of nowhere with a 2 RBI single, makes it 4-3. But then Justin Henry Malloy pops it up to end the game. Crappy way to end the game, but you know what? It was a hell of a comeback. It showed that they had some fight, but it was a little too late. You had 9 innings to prove yourselves, and it was too late. So you had that going on. But yeah, like I said, this ends a 3-game losing streak for the New York Yankees. They got the Giants tomorrow, and then it ends a 5-game winning streak for the Detroit Tigers. So, and then we got the Minnesota Twins tomorrow. So hopefully we can go to Minnesota and handle our business. So you have that going on. Torkelson on the year, he's batting .310. That's good. We want to see Spencer Torkelson, get where he needs to be. We've had it. He's been on the team for a while now. Really hasn't lived up to the expectations. Maybe this year, maybe he can wake up a little bit. And I know it's early. It's early on. We've only had a handful of games. We have like 130 plus more to go. But if he can stay healthy, if he can maintain a 300 batting average, I'm good with that. So you have that. Zach McKinstry, 355 average. Javier Baez, last time I was on the podcast, I talked crap about him. Batting .333, so I'll give him that. And then Riley Green, 289. These are, in my opinion, some of our star players we have. So those guys, they got to keep going. They got to stay healthy. I know we've already dealt with a lot of injuries. Parker Meadows needs to come back ASAP and play center field because Kreidler's not doing it. I mean, he's horrible. I mean, our defense is just yikes. And I was listening to Mike Valenti and Rico Beard, 97-1 ticket right here in Southfield, Michigan, a couple weeks ago. And they were talking about the defense. It's like, okay, yeah, we need Parker Meadows out in the outfield, not Kreidler, because he's supposed to be a good defensive guy. Well, he's not, and his bat is not the greatest either. So get Parker Meadows back, and then I want to talk about Colt Keith. So yesterday he went 0 for 4, right? So not a single hit. I mean, this guy is just god awful. He has a 194 batting average. He made an error at second. Could have been a double play, right, to try to get us out of jam like you're supposed to. And this was in the 9th inning. And this is what caused the Yankees to score a couple more runs. You had runners on third and second, so you had 2 guys in scoring position, made an error. It was a horrible error, right? You went 0 for 4. I mean, what is this guy doing? Why is Colt Keith in the lineup? And it's early. Wait a minute now. I mean, what has this guy ever done? I mean, I mean, has he made any spectacular plays? I mean, is he a top guy like Riley Green or Spencer Torkelson? No. So I'm really hoping some of these guys who are injured, like Gleyber Torres, we got from the Yankees, he's out, with an oblique strain, as I mentioned last week. Hopefully he comes back, replaces Cole Keith, and then maybe Cole Keith can go back to the minors and learn some things. I mean, 0 for 4 yesterday, you make an error that kind of cost us the game, and you got guys you got runners on second and third, and they eventually score from a Aaron Judge 2 RBI single to make it 4-0. I mean, there's something wrong there. So yeah, Aaron Judge 2 RBI single, extend the Yankees lead. They had a 2-0 lead going into the ninth. They extend that lead to 4-0. 6 scoreless innings, as I mentioned. Not really an exciting game between the Yankees and the Tigers. But then obviously in the 7th, you had Ben Rice scoring a 2-run homer against our bullpen, of course. And it was against our bullpen, and then that made the lead 2-0. We finally got runs scored, in the 7th inning. So 2-0 for the Yankees. They end up winning 4-3. Hell of a comeback by the Tigers, but a little too late. So, yeah, 14 total strikeouts from the Yankees bullpen. Absolutely phenomenal. Max Fried, the starting pitcher for the Yankees, 7 innings pitched, 5 hits, 0 runs, 11 strikeouts. And then Jack Flaherty, he had a great game. 5.1 innings pitched, 3 hits, 0 runs, 9 strikeouts. But then the bullpen killed us. So you had Tyler Holton in there. He allowed 2 earned runs. And then John Brebbia allowed 2 runs as well. I mean, that's another shaky point for the Detroit Tigers. That's another shaky part, another shaky aspect of the Detroit Tigers so far. The bullpen, I mean, you guys got to wake up, man. You guys got to help out the starting pitching. I mean, when you have Jack Flaherty, when you have Casey Mize, who got a victory in this series, he's 2-0. You got Tarek Skubal, who's the reigning AL Cy Young Award winner. Absolutely phenomenal season last year. You got to protect those guys. I mean, they're pitching their asses off. Your job as a reliever, part of the bullpen, is to maintain. Stop throwing balls everywhere. Stop getting crazy. Stop allowing runs. Get out there, do your damn job, and let's go. Let's handle our business. So the defensive side of the Detroit Tigers, the bullpen early on, kind of scares me. I'm going to try to watch some of these games this weekend against the Minnesota Twins because it's a rivalry game, right? AL Central division game. I want to see how they do. They're on the road. You've been at home for a while now. You had a 6-game homestand. Now it's time to go to Minnesota. You guys are off today, so hopefully everyone gets rested up. But I want to see how they do against the Minnesota Twins. Like, does the defense come through? Does the bullpen for the Detroit Tigers maintain? Like, can they handle their business, or are we going to see a complete and utter collapse? I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, as I look here, the Minnesota Twins actually won their game yesterday rather. They had a 4-game. They're on a 4-game series with the Royals. So they lost the first 2. They won yesterday, shutout, 4-0. And then they conclude the series today at 2:10 p.m. against the Kansas City Royals. So we'll see how the Minnesota Twins do with that. But Tigers, man, I mean, come on. I mean, you gotta help us out. The defensive side and the bullpen. I mean, early on, not just in this series against the Yankees. I've seen it with the Mariners. I saw it with the Dodgers. Saw a glimpse of it with the White Sox, and we swept them last weekend. So, Tigers, wake up. Get some work done. We need these wins. I know it's early, but, dude, when the All-Star game happens in July, I'm really curious how the Detroit Tigers are going to be. What their record is, who's hurt, who's healthy, who's the top guy we got to look forward to. So that's the Tigers. They're off today. They got Minnesota tomorrow night, 8:10 p.m. against the Minnesota Twins at Minnesota. It's on Apple TV. Sure, you can get on FanDuel Sports as well, hopefully. So that's the Tigers. That's baseball. Lots of games going on. You know, lots of games to prove ourselves. So we'll see what the Tigers do with that. Now we got to hop over to Fight Night, UFC 314. Yes, we got a UFC pay-per-view. Finally, it seems like it's been forever since we saw a pay-per-view. This one, I mean, I'm looking at this main card right now. I mean, you got a lot of featherweights competing, lightweight matchup between Michael Chandler and Paddy Pimblett, and then obviously you got the light heavyweight matchup to open up the main card between Krylov and Reyes. That's going to be a good one as well. But yeah, UFC 314 this Saturday. Main card starts at 10 p.m. on ESPN Plus, live from the Kaseya Center in Miami, Florida. So check it out. Watch the pay-per-view. It's going to be fantastic. UFC 314 is headlined by Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopez. These two are going to fight for the UFC Featherweight Championship after its former champion, Ilia Topuria, plans on giving up the title because he plans on moving up a weight class higher, the lightweight division, 155 pounds there. So the title's up for grabs. Who's going to win, Alex Volkanovski or Diego Lopez? Well, let's dive into the fighters here real quick. So Volkanovski, this guy's one of the best fighters I've ever seen. 26-4-0 record. 13-3 by KO, TKO, and then 3-0 submission victories for Alexander Volkanovski. He has a 13-3 record. His last fight was last February 17, 2024 at UFC 298 at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California. He fought Ilia Topuria, and he lost by TKO, KO in the second round. And that was for the UFC Featherweight Championship. And then he's lost two straight. And then he lost to Islam Makhachev, excuse me. So he lost to Islam Makhachev at UFC 294 back in 2023. Same result, KO, TKO. And like I said, Volkanovski's not getting any younger. You know, he's 36 years old. You know, he's taken, you know, his last two fights ended in knockout TKOs. You know, that chin, you know, when you get hit so many times and you're getting old in age, you know, it's not like you could take a punch anymore like, you know, you were 18 years old or in your 20s, right? You get older, that chin starts to break down a little bit. You become more of a target. You know, when you get punched in the face or kicked in the face, you're going to get knocked out. And these last two fights with Alexander Volkanovski, he's lost by knockout and TKO against two great fighters, Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria, two of the best. And, you know, it's different. It's a different feeling. So two fight losing streak for Volkanovski. He needs this fight. I strongly believe he needs to win this fight against Diego Lopez. It's not going to be an easy matchup for Volk, so we'll see what happens with that. So yeah, Islam Makhachev, he lost to him back in 2023. That was for the lightweight title, 155 pounds there. His last win for Volkanovski came at UFC 290 in 2023, where he beat Yair Rodriguez, who's also competing on the main card for UFC 314 this Saturday, by KO, TKO, and that was at featherweight. And then in his UFC career, he's competed in 9 straight title fights. So this will be his 10th straight title fight on Saturday. So that's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you talk about fighting the best of the best. This is your 10th straight title fight coming up this Saturday for Alexander Volkanovski. So good for him. But he definitely needs this victory against Diego Lopez. Talking about Diego Lopez, we got to dive into his history a little bit. He comes in with a 26-6-0 record overall, 10-2 wins by KO, TKO, and he's undefeated, 12-0 submission victories. So obviously he's the mixed martial artist. Alexander Volkanovski is more of the striker. This is going to be a very interesting matchup. You know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is no joke. I mean, obviously that's what the UFC was based upon. You know, the Royce Gracies, the Gracie family introduced Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to UFC, to mixed martial arts. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup. Diego Lopez, I think he's going to try to sneak a submission in there against Volk. We'll see what happens. But Diego Lopez, winner of 5 straight fights. He has 2 wins by KO, TKO, 1 submission, and 2 unanimous decision victories for Diego Lopez. His last fight was at UFC 306. He beat Brian Ortega, who's another great fighter, by unanimous decision. And that was at the Riyadh Season Noche UFC in the Sphere in Las Vegas, Nevada. So he looked absolutely phenomenal in that fight against Brian Ortega. So him fighting for the featherweight championship against one of the best in Alexander Volkanovski, it's well-deserved. So we'll see what happens with that. His last loss for Diego Lopez was back in 2023, a couple years ago, at UFC 288. A unanimous decision loss to Movsar Iloev, another featherweight. That was his last loss, but since then he's won 5 straight. And that was his first. That loss was actually his first UFC event, but he has won 5 straight since. So coming to this fight, Volkanovski, according to ESPN, he's a minus 125 favorite. Crazy, right? You're going to take that bet? All you degenerate gamblers out there, you're going to take that bet? I don't know. So I'm going to make my pick right now. The bride's going to make his pick. Alexander Volkanovski, former UFC featherweight champion. This is his 10th straight championship fight. So those 5 rounds, 5-minute rounds, 25 minutes total. He has the experience, but you're going up against a younger, lighter, faster fighter in Diego Lopez, winner of 5 straight. Volkanovski opens as a favorite. Who's going to win? The Australian or the Brazilian? In the main event for the UFC featherweight championship. I got to go with Diego Lopez. And, it pains me to say that because I like Alexander Volkanovski, but Diego Lopez, I just think he has more of a arsenal. He can strike, he can grapple, he can submit guys. Like I said, he's quicker on his feet. He's the younger fighter. Volkanovski, you see the age a little bit, getting knocked out in his last 2 fights against top-tier talent in Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. I got to go Diego Lopez. So Diego Lopez is my pick to win the UFC featherweight championship this Saturday night, 10 p.m., main card on ESPN+. So I got Diego Lopez winning that fight. Now we got to talk about the co-main event. So we got Michael Chandler going up against Paddy Pimblett. This is the lightweight division, so 155 pounds, a weight class above featherweight. So Michael Chandler comes in with a record of 23-9-0, 11-4 record by KO, TKO, 7-1 by submission. He's lost his last 2 fights. So another guy, old, needs this fight to win. He's lost to Poirier and Charles Oliveira. Dustin Poirier and Charles Oliveira, 2 of the best UFC fighters, two of the best UFC lightweights ever. So that's top tier competition for Michael Chandler. But his last fight was in November of last year at UFC 309, and he lost by unanimous decision to Charles Oliveira. And that was the second time he lost to Charles Oliveira because they fought a couple years ago. And Michael Chandler, I thought he was going to win that fight, but the ref allowed that to continue, and Charles Oliveira came back in the second round and choked him out. So you had that going on. But his UFC record's not impressive. He is a big name. He's an exciting fighter. This fight's going to be exciting. I mean, he's going to make it exciting somehow. I know Paddy Pimblett's going to try to use his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist. But Michael Chandler's going to find a way to make this fight exciting. I hope he does. I mean, he's Michael F. and Chandler. Make it exciting. But despite that, he has a 2-4 UFC record. He made his debut at UFC 257 a few years ago, and he beat Dan Hooker by KO TKO. And before he came to UFC, he was a top-tier talent at Bellator, UFC's main rival when it comes to mixed martial arts. So, Michael Chandler, loser of 2 straight fights. He needs this fight as well, but, he's 36, 37 years old. Paddy Pimblett comes in. Talk about him now. Younger fighter. He comes in with a 22-3-0 record. Undefeated, 6-0 of those wins by KO, TKO. And he's 10-1 submission. He has 10 wins by submission. So, of course, Mixed martial artist going up against a striker, Michael Chandler. Mixed martial artist, Paddy Pimblett. He's on an 8-fight winning streak. He's undefeated, 6-0 in the UFC. His last loss came in 2018, so 7 years ago, against Soren Bach at the CW 96 event, way back when. But in his time during the UFC for Paddy Pimblett, he's beaten King Green, Bobby Green, obviously, but he goes by King Green now, who's 38 years old. He's beaten Tony Ferguson, who's 41 years old. He defeated Jared Gordon, who's 36 now. So, a lot of old guys, journeymen, if you want to call them. I don't know if you want to call them that, but I mean, when you're in your late 30s, early 40s, I guess you can be classified as a journeyman. But like, I see, okay, obviously King Green's no joke. Tony Ferguson was a beast back in the day, not now. I mean, he lost 12 straight fights in a row. Jared Gordon's a beast. And, talking about that Jared Gordon fight from a couple years ago, many thought Gordon won. I watched this fight. I thought he landed the more significant strikes, did the more damage, was the busier fighter, but he gave it to Paddy Pimblett. So that's the fight game for you, all you boxing, UFC, mixed martial arts fans out there. It happens. I mean, it's shitty, but it happens. So, I look at this resume for Paddy Pimblett, and I'm not really impressed. And then you're going up against another old fighter in Michael Chandler. It's like, are you sure you're going to win this one? I don't know. So you had that going on, and then Paddy Pimblett actually comes into this fight as a minus 155 favorite. So, who do I choose? I like Michael Chandler. He's a striker. I think he's going to make this fight exciting, but Paddy Pimblett, I think he's going to use his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu against Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler can't handle that. Obviously, losing to Charles Oliveira, who's a great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist, twice. So, it's definitely Michael Chandler's kryptonite to go up against Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artists. Paddy Pimblett's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist. He's going to get the victory. I got to go with the favorite in this one. Paddy Pimblett is the Brize's pick for the co-main event at UFC 314 this Saturday night, 10 p.m. at the Casilla Center in Miami, Florida. 10 p.m. main card starts. ESPN Plus. I got the Paddy the Baddie, baby. I got Paddy Pimblett winning against Michael Chandler. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is going to take over for that fight. So that's the co-main event. But now we got to talk about the third fight on this card. Yair Rodriguez, as I mentioned before, that was Alexander Volkanovski's last win, was against Yair Rodriguez. He's going up against Patricio Pitbull. So this is going to be a very interesting fight. This is a featherweight bout, 145. Yair Rodriguez is 32 years old, nicknamed El Pantera, so the Panther. He's lost his last two fights, so another fighter who needs this victory more than anyone else. His last fight was at UFC Fight Night. It was Moreno versus Royval 2 back in February of last year. And he lost to Brian Ortega by submission in the third round. And then obviously, as I mentioned earlier, he lost to Alexander Volkanovski at UFC 290. It was for the featherweight title. He has 11-4 record in the UFC, won no contests. So he's lost his last two fights, Yair Rodriguez. He's got to get the victory Saturday night. But, I mean, you're going up against Patricio Pitbull, and he's no slouch. 37 years old, another guy who's been around for a long time. 36-7-0 record, 13-2 13 wins by KO, TKO, and then 11 wins by submission. So he is the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist in this fight. And then obviously Yair Rodriguez is the striker. So do you see the trend here? Yeah, it's pretty crazy how they match these guys up, right? So Pitbull, he comes from Bellator. He was there for years. He's actually making his UFC debut this Saturday night at UFC 314. So see if he can win. And he's a two-time division champion, or he's a former two-division champion, from Bellator. And then Yair Rodriguez actually opens up as a minus 190 favorite. So you got the 32-year-old Yair Rodriguez. You got the 37-year-old Patricio Pitbull. Who's going to win this fight? Ooh, man. I got to go with Pitbull. You know, these Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artists are no joke. He's going to find a way to get a submission. I would love to see Yair Rodriguez win because he's lost his last 2 fights. He needs it more than anything. But Pitbull comes in with the experience. Former 2-division champion back in Bellator. He's won 11 fights by submission. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist. A lot of Brazilians on this card. He's going to handle his business. I got Pitbull winning this one. Despite Yair Rodriguez being the favorite, I will go with Pitbull in the 3rd fight for UFC 314. So you have that fight. And then 2 more fights for the main card. You got Bryce Mitchell going up against Jean Silva. This is a very interesting fight because Mitchell comes in, another featherweight bout, by the way, 145. 145 pounders going at it. Mitchell comes in with a 17-3-0 record. He's won 9 fights by submission. His last fight was December of last year, so a few months ago, at UFC 310. And he won versus Kron Gracie by KO TKO. So he looked impressive in that fight. He's 30 years old, but he also got knocked out really bad. I mean, it was a vicious knockout to Josh Emmett back at UFC 296, excuse me. But the thing about Bryce Mitchell, I mean, this guy, I mean, I'm all about free speech. I really am. But, I mean, there's times where, you know, you got to think before you say something. Like, you sound like a complete idiot and moron and jackass when you make comments about Hitler. Oh, he was a good guy. I mean, he made comments earlier this year, back in January. He said Hitler was a good guy. Yeah, right? And he denied that the Holocaust happened. Really? I mean, did you pick up a history book when you were back in school, or are you just a complete ignoramus? I'm going to go with the latter. You're completely ignorant. Oh, yeah, Hitler was a good guy. Oh, yeah, sure, right? And he denied that the Holocaust happened. It's ignorant. I mean, it was a stupid, dumb, idiotic comments made by a fighter when he had no reason to make those comments. So, yeah, that going on. That's what kind of build-up is. You know, you got to sell the fight, right? But, I mean, maybe we just don't talk about Hitler and denying the Holocaust, that the Holocaust happened. Maybe we just don't bring that up, right? I mean, it's 2025, man. Come on, dude. I mean, a complete idiot. And now everyone wants to see him get knocked out, and I think he's going to. But hold on. We got to get to Jean Silva here in a little bit. But he has an 8-3 UFC record. Bryce Mitchell does. But, you know, you make comments like that, man. I mean, you deserve to get knocked out. I'm sorry. I mean, it's just ignorant. It's completely ignorant. And like I said earlier, I'm all about free speech. You know, that's a First Amendment right here in the United States. Last time I checked. But you got to think sometimes. I mean, you can't be a complete idiot and moron making comments like that. My opinion. You guys can have your own opinions on that situation. So you have that. You have Bryce Mitchell. And a very interesting Bryce Mitchell. Now we got to talk about Jean Silva. 15-2-0 record. He's undefeated by KO TKO. He has 12 wins by KO TKO. 2 victories by submission. So you hear those statistics and, you know, how this rivalry's been building up for a few months now. Jean Silva is ready he's out for blood. He's ready to knock Bryce Mitchell out. Knock him out, put him to sleep. Good night, my good friend. Bye-bye. You know, you're not going to remember this day. And I think Jean Silva is ready to knock Bryce Mitchell out. But we'll see what happens. He's 28 years old, so he's the same age as me. I wouldn't want to go up against him. So, yeah, that going on. But the favorite, listen to these odds. Listen to this. According to ESPN, this is all these bets, all these numbers are from ESPN. Minus 270 favorite for Jean Silva. Now, if you're Bryce Mitchell, you don't like those odds. And, yeah, that's crazy stuff right there. Minus 270. So, who are you going to bet? Who's going to win? Place your bets right now. Who's going to win that fight? But going back to Jean Silva, he won his last fight. It was UFC Fight Night, Cejudo versus Son, February of this year. So a couple months ago, So he's already right back into the groove of things. So good for him. I like seeing the activity level for a lot of these fighters. And he beat Melsik Baghdad-Sarian. Hopefully I got that right. So he beat Melsik Baghdad-Sarian by KO TKO in the first round. So quick victory for Jean Silva. I remember watching it. It was a great knockout. He has a 5-0 record. He's undefeated in the UFC. 5-0 UFC record. He's on a 12-fight winning streak, and his last loss came in 2018, 7 years ago. So 12-fight winning streak. He's undefeated in the UFC, 5-0. He won his last fight a couple months ago. Didn't take him long. First round knockout. He opens up as a -270 favorite against Bryce Mitchell. Who do I got? The Brazilian or the American? Well, I was born in the U.S. I got to go with the American, right? Nah. I'm looking for a knockout. It's going to happen. Jean Silva is my pick to beat Bryce Mitchell. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bryce Mitchell gets knocked out in the first round. I mean, you make comments like that. I mean, you just act like a bonehead, an idiot, a moron. Throughout this entire process, leading up to fight week, fight night, you know, you're going to get knocked out, Bryce Mitchell. You're going to get knocked out, dude. Good night. Bye-bye. So I got Jean Silva winning this one. So that's my pick there. And then the first fight to open up the main card this Saturday night, 10 p.m. ESPN Plus, KCS Center in Miami, Florida. You got two light heavyweights going at it. 205 pounders. Two big boys going at it. You got Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes. So obviously you know who Dominic Reyes is. But Nikita Krylov, 33 years old, from Ukraine. He has a 39-0 record. He's won 12 fights by KO, TKO. And he's won 16 fights by submission. So, again, another Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist here. Dominic Reyes is the striker. So, you know, Krylov is going to try snap a submission on Reyes. We'll see what happens. Nikita Krylov comes in with a 3-fight winning streak. 1 submission, 1 unanimous decision, and 1 knockout. So you have that going on. His last fight was at UFC Fight Night, Jan versus Dvalishvili, back in March of 2023. And he won by submission against Ryan Spann, another light heavyweight in the UFC. So, yeah, good resume for Krylov. He opens up as a -180 favorite. So that'll be interesting to see how, you know, where the betting goes with that. But now he's going up against Dominic Reyes, 35 years old. He has a 14-4-0 record. He has 9 fights, won by KO, TKO, and he's got 2 submission wins. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. And then before that, he lost 4 straight. And then he took like over a year off, clear his head a little bit, get back in shape, you know, get that mindset right. Because when you lose 4 straight, especially in the UFC, dude, you might get cut. You know, Dana White's not messing around. Like, dude, if you're not performing in the octagon, bye-bye, dude. No, I mean, obviously, you know, with Tony Ferguson got a lot of chances. And you know what? Tony Ferguson had a 12-fight winning streak, obviously, many years ago, and then he lost 8 straight. And I think I made an error there earlier. I said he lost 12 in a row. He's lost 8 in a row. That's my bad. So, error there, right? But before that, 12-fight win streak. He's lost 8. Tony Ferguson has. But he's out of the UFC. Finally, Dana White finally came to his senses and say, oh, okay, you're not the Tony Ferguson from like 10 years ago. But Dominic Reyes, he lost 4 in a row. And it all started when he fought John Jones. And the thing about Dominic Reyes leading up to that championship fight against John Jones 5 years ago now, which is crazy, right? He was undefeated. He was 12-0. Dominic Reyes was 12-0 going to that title fight against John Jones. He lost by unanimous decision, which was crazy. I thought one of those rounds you got to give to Dominic Reyes. And that was at UFC 247. I think that was in Houston, Texas, if I'm not mistaken, back in February of 2020. So before COVID. Yeah, before COVID struck the world. We saw that fight. It was a very controversial fight in my eyes. You know, a lot of people say, oh, no, Jones won. And I mean, Dominic Reyes gave him a tough time. But then that started the collapse of Dominic Reyes, because then he lost to Jan Blachowicz. another great UFC light heavyweight. Yuri Prohaska, another great light heavyweight. Ryan Spann, who lost to Nikita Krylov in his last fight. And, that's the thing. And Ryan Spann, and that, going to that fight, he had a winning streak going on as well. But yeah, that was a 4-fight losing streak for Dominic Reyes. So his last fight, Dominic Reyes, was back at UFC 310 last December, so a couple months ago. And he won by KO, TKO, second round against Anthony Smith. He's retired now, so obviously he's been in the business for a long time. But yeah, this is, I would love to see Dominic Reyes win this fight. You got Krylov, as I mentioned, opens up as a minus 180 favorite. So you got the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist going up against the striker, Reyes, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Nikita Krylov. Who's going to win this one? You see the trend here? Yeah, you got strikers versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artists. A lot more in the arsenal if you're trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But do I go with the Ukrainian or do I go with the American in this one? Krylov, minus 180, favorite. Dominic Reyes on a 2-fight winning streak. Krylov has a 3-fight winning streak on his own. So someone's got to lose, right? I got to go with Dominic Reyes. I'm going to go with Reyes in this one. I've picked a lot of favorites. I picked a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artists for the main card. I'm going to go with the striker this time. Dominic Reyes going to handle his business. Start off that main card on a high note. Set the tone for UFC 314 this Saturday night. Dominic Reyes beats Nikita Krylov. I'm going with Dominic Reyes. So those are your prizes. Those are the picks from the prize himself for the main card of UFC 314. So you got to go through the rest of this card. You got the prelims. Dan Ige, Sean Woodson on this card as well. Jim Miller. This guy, he's he's 40 plus years old. 38-18 record. Excuse me. I couldn't see that there for a second. He's going against Chase Hooper, who's been great. But yeah, Jim Miller, obviously the veteran. He's still getting victories, man. It's crazy. At his age, you would think he would start losing some fights. He's won a couple of fights in the past couple of years. So, but yeah, Chase Hooper, another Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist. That guy, he's like a spider monkey. That guy is great. So I might have to take Chase Hooper, the younger guy, the faster fighter, and that. But Jim Miller's got that experience. So he's on. Those two guys are fighting each other on the prelims. So you have that going on. Let's see who else is here. Big names. Yeah, and really no one else. But yeah, Jim Miller, Chase Hooper, Dan Ige, excuse me, Sean Woodson, and obviously the main card, as I mentioned. This is going to be, on paper, it looks good. Hopefully it's a great event. You got UFC 314 this Saturday. As I mentioned, ESPN Plus, main card starts at 10. The prelims start at 8, and the early prelims start at 6 o'clock. Live from the Casillas Center in Miami, Florida. Florida always puts on a great show, in my opinion. All the years I've been watching UFC, Florida's definitely a hot spot. Obviously, you got Vegas. That's the origin of UFC. Texas put on a couple good events. Canada, England, Australia even. So hopefully they come back to Detroit, Michigan. I would love to go to a UFC event, but this one's in Miami, Florida. This Saturday night, 10 p.m., the main card starts. UFC 314, Alexander Volkanovski, Diego Lopez for the vacant UFC Featherweight Championship. Check it out, or the pay-per-view. It's going to be a good one. So that's UFC. We got to end today's episode with Kamel Macklin, my man, New Way Training Center from Clinton Township, Michigan. I kept on saying Macomb the past couple weeks here on Guys Time. Clinton Township, Michigan, not Macomb. I mean, same difference, right? But New Way Training Center, you got 3 professional fighters coming out of that gym. 3 of the greatest people I ever met. You had Savannah Teeny. Yes, Savannah, not Savannah. Savannah, get it right, you sons of bitches. So Savannah Teeny, 4-0. She got her 4th pro fight. And she won her 4th pro fight last Tuesday, April 1st in Nashville, Tennessee. And she won by unanimous decision. She won her 4th pro fight. She looked absolutely phenomenal. I watched this fight on my phone. Her jab looked flawless. I mean, she was just throwing that like it was no one's business. She was mixing the stances between orthodox and southpaw, and she was very quick too. I mean, Savantini, congratulations. I said it last week, but you looked absolutely phenomenal. So you had that going on. But yeah, Savannah 4-0 in her pro boxing career. So good for her. But then you had Anthony Popillo as well win his second pro fight last Friday. He won by TKO. I mean, did you expect anything different from that guy? That guy's a beast. I mean, look at him. Guy's a giant. He's a machine. He won at the Radisson Convention Center in Southfield, Michigan. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to go and watch that fight. But first round TKO, not surprised, right? That's how his first fight ended. He won by first round TKO, handled his business, and now he's 2-0 as a professional boxer. So congratulations to Savannah. I mean, we got to really emphasize that word because I'm watching the broadcast, and I said this last week here on the podcast, and the lead commentator, you're the captain of the ship, dude. And you kept on saying Savannah, like your co-commentators are pronouncing it right. Get with the program, dude. Like, have me go there. I know how to pronounce her name. It's not hard. Savannah. I mean, tomato. It's Savannah, dude. Not Savannah. Savannah. So, you had that going on. But yeah, congratulations to her. Savantini, 4-0 in her boxing career. She looked absolutely fantastic. Anthony Popillo, I can only imagine how he handled his business. He won by TKO in the first round. So, you already know what happened there. So, 2-0 for New Way Training Center. Can New Way Training Center make it 3-0 next Friday, Good Friday, April 18th, 7 o'clock p.m. at Hype Athletics in Dearborn, Michigan? You already know they're going to go 3-0 because my boy, Kamel Macklid's there. So New Way looks to make it 3-0 for all their boxers starting next Friday, as I mentioned, April 18th at Hype Athletics Rec Center in Dearborn, Michigan. Kamel, this is his second pro fight. He won his first fight by TKO, 90 seconds. That's all it took. His opponent wanted no more of Kamel. I mean, I wouldn't blame that guy. Kamel's an absolute savage. And he won it at the Dort Financial Center in Flint, Michigan. And I watched his fight. I watched his first fight, dude. And this guy, absolutely phenomenal. He was quick. He had great footwork, lots of power, lots of excitement. I mean, you know you're going to get all that when Kamel Macklid's in the ring. I mean, he's going to put on the show. That's what he does. He's a great boxer. So, with all that being said, get your tickets now. Follow his social media. He's on Instagram. He's on TikTok, Facebook. But message him. If you don't have his phone number, his personal phone number, follow his social media handle on Instagram. It's his last name, Macklid, Makled, and his first name, Kamel, Kahmel. So follow Kamel Macklid. You get your tickets now using the code KMacklid18. You get a discount there. And then if you want some merchandise, use the code Macklid15 to get a discount. The Bry's got his shirt yesterday, so hopefully I'll get it within the next week. Hopefully before the fight, right? I mean, you got a week to prepare to get that t-shirt to me. You got, next week, Friday, fight night. I would love to have it by then, of course, so that I can wear it and support Kamel, my boy, for that. So get your tickets now. Running low, merchandise. Get it now. Follow him on Instagram. His social media handle, as I mentioned, is Macklid Kamel. His last name and his first name. He's on Instagram. Message him. Get your tickets. Get your merch. He will hook you up with that. So we're done. So yeah, we had college basketball, the championship game this past Monday night. You had the Tigers taking the series 2 out of 3 against the New York Yankees, the runner-ups from the World Series last year. We had some UFC fights this weekend. UFC 314 live, 10 p.m. ESPN Plus, Miami, Florida. Check it out. Play some bets. And then we got some boxing. 3 amazing boxers coming out of New Way Training Center in Clinton Township, Michigan. Savannah Teeny. I mean, I cannot emphasize that word enough. And I know she's going to get a crack at this when she has an opportunity to listen to the episode today. But yes, Savannah Teeny, 4-0 in her boxing career, pro boxing career. So good for her. She got her victory last Tuesday in Nashville, Tennessee. Last Friday, you had Anthony Papillo going 2-0, winning by TKO in the first round. And now Kamel Macklin, he's going to go 2-0. Next Friday, Good Friday, it's going to be a bad Friday for his opponent. I've said it numerous times. I'll say it again. He's gonna make it 3-0 for these fighters coming out of New Way Training Center. So good for them. New Way. Shout out to Coach Bobby Curtis and Coach Izzy Curtis. They've done an amazing job over there training these fighters and just allowing people like me come in and train. I really appreciate it. We all appreciate it. You're doing a great service for Clinton Township, Michigan, and all Macomb Township, Michigan. So we're done. So thank you for listening to me again. Check out this episode. You already know the drill. YouTube. You can see my ugly face if you want. You can listen to me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Just look up Guys Time with the Bryes. And yeah, we'll be rolling. We got a lot of sports coming up. So check my Instagram out. I'll have some videos coming up next couple days, hopefully, or relatively soon. And we will be cooking with that. So thank you for joining me again. You guys are the best as usual. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the weekend. Watch some fights. Watch some baseball. And then, boxing. New Way Training Center. Taking over the boxing world, man. All right, take care, guys. Have a good one.